Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. Well, this is yet another offering that I did not intend to shoot when I rolled out of bed this morning. But it's an offering that's worth creating nonetheless. I was on Twitter this morning promoting some of my video content. I think it was the Cliff Robinson piece and then the Chadwick Boseman piece from my entertainment and media channel. And I saw on Twitter that the great John Thompson had passed away, the legendary men's basketball coach from Georgetown University. So I said, wow, how could you have a sports channel and how could you be a basketball fan and not create something remembering John Thompson? So I'm looking at the clock here, and I wanted to just get some of my thoughts on John Thompson down here, and hopefully I won't screw this up. So I learned over the weekend, just like shooting a video of yourself when you do the voiceover format, in some instances, errors and misstatements make it through. So basically, in my Cliff Robinson piece, I made a joke, or I told the story about my brother and the one time he met Cliff Robinson at the Homestyle Family Buffet here in Tonawanda in Western New York. And it turned out I said that my brother asked Cliff Robinson for an interview, but he asked Cliff Robinson for an autograph. So I left that comment under that video after he called that to my attention. My brother pays very, very close attention to my videos and the things that I say and that I don't say and how I present and how I look and vice versa. So I'm always highly policed in that regard. But John Thompson. So for those unfamiliar with him, John Thompson was the legendary men's basketball coach at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And I knew that he did play in the pros with the Boston Celtics. And it turned out that he was on the same team with Bill Russell. So it looks like he was Bill Russell's backup. And I thought John was from the Deep South, but it looks like he was born in Washington, D.C. and attended Archbishop Carroll High School in Washington, D.C. And he attended Providence College before going on to the NBA. So he was during his playing days, he was 6'10" and 269 pounds. And I'm going to leave an article from ESPN in the description box below, but it looks like he backed up Bill Russell on Red Auerbach's legendary Boston Celtics teams. It said that he didn't play much behind the legendary Bill Russell, but he was on that team, and he thus had a championship pedigree and experience, which he took with him to Georgetown. And it looks like he started coaching Georgetown in the mid 1970s, before the original Big East basketball conference was formed in the 1980s. And if those listening to this haven't seen it, ESPN made a really good documentary in their 30 for 30 series called Requiem for the Big East. And I cited that documentary in a video I shot about the Big Ten and the Pac-12 2020 football seasons being canceled. But what I will say about, there's the history of the Georgetown Hoyas in the 1980s is written, and it's been well documented. So I'm not going to attempt to capture that in this offering, but I'm just going to give my reflections on the Hoyas and my recollections of John Thompson and his Georgetown teams. Now, going back to my Cliff Robinson video, again, for a kid who wanted to play basketball, who really wanted to play basketball in middle school, going into high school, I missed a lot of the 1980s college basketball, which many could argue while the NBA was going through its golden age with Bird, Magic, Dr. J, and then, the ascension of the Pistons and then the ascension of the Bulls. The argument could be made that the college basketball world was going through a similar golden age because those college basketball programs were feeding players into that NBA. And one of the powerhouses at that time was Georgetown. And as I started slowly watching more and more basketball, and I paid more attention to the NBA than I did to the NCAA, to NCAA men's college basketball. But in the periphery, I remember seeing those gray and dark blue jerseys. I remember seeing Patrick Ewing and Alonzo Mourning and Dikembe Mutombo. And so Georgetown University very much was college basketball big man U. So some of these schools, at least in football, they're known for producing certain types of or certain positions. Linebacker U, quarterback U, cornerback U, wide receiver U. Well, Georgetown, during that era, John Thompson recruited and developed and sent big man after big man after big man to the NBA. And they had those cool gray jerseys, those gray and dark blue jerseys, and they wore the t-shirts underneath. And but the big men weren't the only ones who weren't the only notable players that John Thompson produced and who were on his teams. I remember Eric Sleepy Floyd. I used to collect NBA Hoops basketball cards, so I know a lot of trivia. So Eric Sleepy Floyd stands out, and also David Wingate stands out as well. And the Hoyas made several trips to the Final Four in the 80s. They won it one year with Patrick Ewing. That might have been Patrick Ewing's final year. But they also lost to the Villanova Wildcats in that Cinderella run. And they also lost to Dean Smith's, I believe it was the 1982 North Carolina Tar Heel team, where Michael Jordan, who was then known as Mike Jordan, hit the game winner. And also on that team were James Worthy and Sam Perkins and Matt Doherty and Buzz Peterson. And that team was loaded. But that game Georgetown actually had a chance to win that game. But one of their players, I can't think of the kid's name, actually turned the ball over and threw it right to James Worthy. Now, John Thompson, after if you watch Requiem of the Big East, in a post-game interview, he was very outspoken about, if I recall correctly, he didn't want to be known as the first black coach to win the NCAA tournament. He just wanted to be known as the first Georgetown coach to win the championship. And so in that regard, he didn't want to basically make that distinction and say that it's that big a deal that someone black had done it. He just wanted to celebrate and revel in the win. He was also, how should I say this? He was also very active in or outspoken about social issues. His Hoya teams faced, that was the 80s. So in Requiem of the Big East, there were a lot of racial slurs hurled at his Hoya teams. And so he was always very outspoken about social issues and race relations and those kinds of things. And I think the Hoyas were, for a little while, the bad boys or the Oakland Raiders of the Big East and of college basketball. And their paraphernalia was very, very popular in the 80s. A lot of kids around Buffalo had those Georgetown Hoya jackets. Yeah, and so the big rivalry in the Big East was Georgetown versus Syracuse. And it was just before the Big East, before big-time college football broke up the Big East. That was the premier men's college basketball conference. And it started off as strictly a basketball conference. Probably John's last great player was none other than Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson's early troubles down in Newport News are well documented. And he went to jail for a little while. And John Thompson was the one coach who gave AI a chance. And once AI was granted clemency. And so, again, John's last great player was Allen Iverson. And in my opinion, that was the last great men's college basketball tournament, which was in 1996. In that tournament, you had Allen Iverson and Ray Allen and Kerry Kittles and John Wallace and Marcus Camby and Keith Van Horn was in there and Tim Duncan was in there. And that was, in my opinion, the last great tournament because you had all those stars in there. And Georgetown made a run to the regional where they lost to John Calipari's UMass Minutemen, who were led by Marcus Camby and Dana Dingle and Dante Bright and Edgar Padilla and Carmelo Travieso. See, I remember all this stuff. And that was as far as that Georgetown team went. The number 2 player on that team was Victor Page, also from Washington, D.C. And Allen went pro after that year. And then the next year, Georgetown was led by Victor Page, and they weren't as good. They made it to the NCAA tournament, but I think John Thompson retired shortly afterwards. And his son, John Thompson Jr., took over. And John started doing some commentary on television. And he was also, when I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, he was also pretty active on their local sports radio. So those are my memories of Big John. I'm going to end with a story here from my high school, Hutch Tech High School here in Buffalo, New York. One of the assistant coaches my last year on my team was a gentleman named Irv Saraki. And this might not be the best thing to put into a remembrance video, but this is a part of sports. It's a part of everything. There are criticisms. And one of the things Mr. Saraki said was that with all of the talent that Georgetown had, they should have won more titles. But Nick Van Exel, who played at Cincinnati, once said that about Dean Smith. So that always stood out to me that Mr. Saraki said that about John Thompson. But, again, whatever you do, whether it's coaching sports, whether it's running an organization, whether it's hosting your own YouTube channels or running a blogging platform, everyone's going to get criticized for something. So, in any case, I want to say rest in power, John Thompson, and thank you for all that you did for men's college basketball, professional basketball, and for the world. So I'm going to stop this here. If you have any John Thompson stories or memories, please leave those in the description box. Please leave those in the comment section below. Please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.